So the bad thing about going last is that I'm going to be the reason that you're all late for your classes. So I apologize in advance, but a couple of things I thought I might like to say that might be worth hearing. Okay? So, good morning, and welcome back. I'm honored and humbled to be here today speaking to you. And I truly mean that. But I want to tell you a secret. I don't believe in awards. Well, I believe they exist. I'm really glad I won this one. But I don't believe that they showcase the best in people. And yet here I am giving a speech because I won an award. As an English teacher, I'm well aware of the irony of that statement. I want to be very clear that this is not from a lack of gratitude. Anyone who knows me can tell you that gratitude is one of the strongest driving forces of my life, and it'll be a major part of this speech later on. But let me tell you why I am suspicious about the value of awards. Years ago, I taught a book called A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. The book is really a long essay about why inequality exists. Woolf focuses primarily on gender, but her argument could be equally applied to ethnicity or race or religion or sexual orientation or any of the other areas in which inequality often runs rampant. In the book, she examines the conditions of the traditionally all-male versus all-female universities of the 1920s. She talks about how the male universities, like Oxford and Cambridge, have magnificent buildings, sumptuous food, and comfortable living spaces, while the all-female universities have merely adequate facilities and food that may provide the body what it needs but doesn't truly satisfy anyone. She carefully details how the great ideas proposed by the famous students and professors at the university would not be possible on cheap, hard-backed chairs eating food that doesn't truly satisfy anyone. Woolf points out that Jane Austen, the author of Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, did not even have a writing desk, and she had to hide her manuscripts when guests came over. There are notable examples of people who managed to succeed despite their circumstances, but for nearly everyone else, brilliance can only flourish under the right conditions. In her book, she talks about a day when she was walking on campus of the all-male university, and she had what she calls a small fish of an idea. I'm sure you've had this type of idea. It's a moment where you wonder, what if? Sometimes these ideas go nowhere, and sometimes they lead to great realizations. I don't consider either one of these more valuable than the other. One of my daughters loves to come up with original recipes to bake, and most of the time, that means we get amazing, sophisticated, delicious desserts. But sometimes it means we have things that are completely inedible. I don't consider either one of these more valuable than the other. I have a brother who works at SpaceX, and he once solved a very complex issue of rocket science using slap bracelets. Sometimes the greatest ideas come from little tiny what-if moments. But back to Virginia Woolf. She was walking around campus with the small fish of a what-if idea in her brain, and she was trying to see if she could nurture it to become a big fish idea. But she forgot that at the all-male universities of the time, women were not allowed to walk on the grass. In a stunning display of sexism, the university had a rule that only male scholars could walk on the grass because seeing a woman might distract them from their brilliant thinking. So while she was nurturing her small fish, a policeman blew his whistle and angrily shouted at her for breaking the rules. And in that moment, her small fish idea swam away. Awards are given for great achievements, and rightly so. But great achievements can only happen under the right conditions. And this brings me back to gratitude. Here at Hun, we have a gorgeous campus, meticulously and lovingly maintained by an all-star facilities team led by Mike Tchaikovsky and Jason Fletcher and Christian Alvarez and Bob Adams. We are served excellent food every day by the folks at Sage Dining. And for anyone who ever complains about the food, I would just like to say, go to any other school and eat the food and see what you think. Sage manages to cook hot meals for 800 people 3 times a day. And during the big snowstorm of 2018, when my family was living on campus, the snowstorm that knocked out the power in all the dormitories and the dining hall and the entire neighborhood, Sage still managed to cook hot meals 3 times a day by cooking on little stoves connected to a generator. The food Sage makes for us is amazing, and I'm so grateful for it every day. The staff who work for Sage and facilities are also some of the friendliest people around, and they come in very early and often stay very late to make sure that your environment is one in which brilliant ideas can flourish and small fish ideas can become nourished into big ones. I have never been to a school where the facilities and dining staff cared so much about the student experience. We are incredibly lucky to have them. So I'm standing here today because of an award, and I'm proud of what my students accomplished that led to this. But the credit for the award also goes to the people who clean the buildings and prepare the food. It belongs to the teachers who discuss their creative ideas and their classroom struggles while playing board games with me. It belongs to the administration and the development office who prioritize the student and teacher experience by creating new science and art spaces, who fund professional development trips, and who have the vision and the work ethic to push through big fish ideas like next term that redefine what it means to be educated in the 21st century. I'm also here because of John Ford and Matt Sozio, who won the Kiefer Community Kindness Award last year for his decades of loving service to this school. I'm here because of Olga and Alfredo and Elena and Rosa. As we go into this year, which I would like to christen the Year of Gratitude, I would like for you to make sure that you take the time to thank every person on this campus who works so hard to make your education possible. It is too late for you to know Olga or Alfredo or John Ford or Sozio now because they're not here anymore. But the people who have taken their places love this school just as much and will do so much for you over the coming years. So you need to know their names. You need to know Miss Robinson and Miss Shimilevsky, who are the glue that holds the upper school together. You need to know Eddie and Mark and John and Jeff and the other Jeff and Maria and Joe and Mike and Francisco and Frank and Tony and Ronald and German and Erica and Rowena and Elio and Concepcion and Sammy and Mershon and so many more people who spend so much of their time and energy making your learning possible. You also need to get to know Mr. Brome in his final year at Hun. It makes me so sad to say that. I've been lucky enough to have Mr. Brome as my boss twice. He was the head of the upper school and hired me for my first teaching job in Virginia, and then after he came here, he hired me again. In his office, there's a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and Mr. Brome is built in the model of Honest Abe. He prefers to showcase those around him rather than trumpeting his own achievements. But I've had to deal with some very difficult situations with students or teachers or parents, and Mr. Brome always manages to do the right thing while leaving everyone's dignity intact. He has a wisdom that seems effortless or even naive sometimes until you're involved in a discussion with him that turns out to be much trickier than you thought it was. Mr. Brome's kindness is clearly apparent to anyone who knows him, but what is less apparent is how masterfully he has steered this school through some very difficult times. His name, Brome, is the word for one of those elegant horse-drawn carriages. We're always proud of ourselves when we learn to drive, but how often do we remember to thank the car that got us there? Mr. Brome may not come up with all the ideas himself, but that's not ultimately the leader's job. There are plenty of heads of school who would squash small fish ideas as being impractical. Next term was a small fish idea at one point. Mr. Brome is wise enough not to blow the whistle while small fish ideas are being nurtured so that they do not swim away. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says that the greatest leaders seem invisible so that the people think that they do everything themselves. Mr. Brome's greatest skill is what all teachers strive for, the ability to bring out the best in others. So I want you to understand, especially you, seniors, that leadership is not a position of power, but a position where you have the opportunity to serve. Winning an award is not so much a prize as a responsibility. Many of you won awards last year, more will win this year. You will work hard in your classes, but I hope you will not think of your grades as something that defines you. If you make good grades, good for you, but make sure that you acknowledge the people who create the environment in which that is possible. And if you're not satisfied with your grades, you need to look instead at your progress. Everyone starts from a different place, and the point is not to win a prize. The point is to move forward. One of the primary obstacles to true achievement is excessive focus on grades. The philosopher Alan Watts once said that only an idiot would go into a restaurant and try to eat a menu. The menu is not nourishing. It is the thing which points you to the meal that you would like to eat. And grades are like the menu. But the experience of learning, which is the meal, lies beyond the grade. I still remember how my children could not sleep the night before starting kindergarten because they were so excited. Luckily, both of them still love going to school, but I suspect that for many of you, any excitement you might feel is mixed with a certain measure of nervousness, or maybe even dread. What happens to students between kindergarten and high school that can destroy the excitement of learning? I think part of that may come from the reality that school is a lot of work and pressure, but I think if we're really honest, a lot of that pressure is something you do to yourself. Don't mistake your grades for achievements. This is something you're going to struggle with your entire time at Hun, and it's something many of your teachers will say to you very often. For now, just understand that as your teachers, we value your curiosity more than your test-taking abilities. My brother Jack, the one who works at SpaceX, says their philosophy as a company is that they're going to have to fail 6 times before they learn anything of value. 6 times. And for him, a failure is usually a matter of several $1 million. A multi-million-dollar failed project is a lot more stressful than a low grade on a test. But in their culture, they celebrate failures as forward movement, as a chance to learn from their mistakes. I hope we can learn to do that as well. The point of Virginia Woolf's book is that brilliant achievements can only happen under the right conditions. You need to be grateful for everyone at the school who worked so hard to provide those circumstances for you. But you also need a room of your own, the thing Jane Austen didn't have. And this is my second point. You need space to figure out who you are, what your passions are, what you want to contribute to the world through your time here. That's what you should be doing in your English journals, in the clubs you join, in the friends you make. You need to find a way to listen to the small fish thoughts that will lead to big fish thoughts. You need to find people who will appreciate your weird ideas. I know your teachers are eager for that, and it's honestly one of the best things about Hun. In my family, we understand weirdo to be a high compliment. It's the mark of someone who is not afraid to be themselves. Dr. Busey says that when you're studying a work of literature, you need to focus your attention mainly on the weirdnesses, those moments that you don't fully understand, but which in the end provide the most fertile material for literary analysis. I would like to extend that further. Discover your own weirdnesses and celebrate them in others. With kindness and curiosity, seek to discover how these weirdnesses make you unique, how they make our community unique. Get to know the people from the 16 countries and the 16 states who make up our boarding community. Mr. Dowse talks about the importance of temples on campus, those places where we're most able to express our identities. For some people, it's the global commons. For other people, it's the athletic fields. You may not know yet where your temple is, but we are eager to help you find it, or to build it if we don't have it yet. Go respectfully and curiously to the temples of others, even and especially if they are different from yours. Participate in the Ramadan fast with the Muslim students. Go to the Hanukkah celebration with the Jewish students. And by all means, make sure you come to the Diwali and Kwanzaa and Lunar New Year celebrations, which are my favorite activities at Hun. Look for the weirdnesses around campus, whether that be the word propitious engraved in the concrete by the athletic center, or the stone dogs at the koi pond, or the fake dead geese on the athletic field during spring break. Look for the weirdnesses in your classmates and find the clubs that will help you discover those weird passions that are just small fish right now. Years ago, when I first started teaching, the big awards assembly happened right after we read the section about the small fish. I watched as many students that I admired so highly did not win awards, and I watched the disappointment on their faces mingling with being glad for their friends. My class was right after the assembly, and so I got a big carton of goldfish, and I poured them into cups, which I handed out to each student. These became the Small Fish Awards, an award for a moment of kindness in a busy day, an award for trying something new, an award for a fantastic failure at interpreting a novel that was completely wrong, but opened up the novel's inner meanings. In my classes, we clap for people who take big risks and fail. Each of you has gifts that you can contribute to this community that are small fish gifts. Sitting next to someone you've never met before at lunch. Speaking up in a Harkness discussion, even though you're nervous about whether your ideas are going to be accepted. Trying out for an athletic team, or a play, or an orchestra, even though you know that the competition is going to be stiff. These are the moments that make our school great, far more than any grand achievements that get awards at the end of the year. Because as Virginia Woolf reminds us, the big awards are only possible because of the small fish moments that make up our everyday lives. I want to leave you with 3 short examples of how I hope this year of gratitude can play out. First, my brother often has to hire new employees at SpaceX, and he says the first step in any process is to question the question itself. The Buddhists call this a beginner's mind. They have to try to figure out if they're asking the right question, which can seem pretty silly to someone with a graduate degree who thinks they already know the answer. Jack says that in his experience, people who did really well in school and won a lot of awards are not usually very good at this. It's the people who struggled in school, who understand the importance of questioning the very foundations of what they are learning, and that's how you own your education. Let's be grateful for the opportunity to be wrong, for the opportunity to confront the unfamiliar and the unknown. Second, I once taught Russell Wilson, quarterback for the Denver Broncos, who won the Super Bowl in his second season with the Seattle Seahawks. What impressed me most about Russell was not that he got up at 5 a.m. every day to practice, though that was impressive, or the fact that he played every game like it was the Super Bowl, even if there were only 2 people in the stands. What impressed me most about Russell was that when there was a substitute teacher and students were tempted to misbehave, Russell was the one who made sure that the substitute teacher was respected. His philosophy is there's a king in every crowd. Let's be grateful for the opportunity to do our best and to be our best, even and especially when no one is watching. And finally, for those of you who will be taking my English elective, Mythology and Magic, we're going to study some Zen koans, which are the most profound type of learning I've ever encountered. What you will discover there is how the most powerful type of critical thinking cannot be graded. But the point I want to make here today is that in a Zen monastery, the Zen master's job is to clean the toilets. And in the old days, they did this with a stick. The great leader, the award winner, is not someone who now gets people to do things for them. Seniors, 8th graders, I'm looking at you now. Let us be grateful for the opportunity to serve. Leading the school does not mean you have extra powers. It means you have extra responsibility. You need to contribute to the environment in which brilliant achievements become possible, not just for yourself, but for everyone else here. So to conclude, be weird, be grateful, be curious, and be kind. Don't let your grades define you. Seek to become servant leaders. And when you discover a small fish swimming around inside somewhere, nurture it and let it grow. And then come to my office for a small fish award. Thank you.